So, you want to be a belly dance teacher. Well, what skills do you actually need? And what other considerations are there? Hi, I'm Kashmir, and for over 20 years now I've been teaching belly dance. I started when I'd only been learning belly dance for 5 years, subbing for another teacher, and then a year after that I was called in to take my own classes, my own 2 classes within 6 months, and 4 years after that I started my own school. So I know a little bit about teaching. So what are the requirements? I started teaching effectively after 6 years of study. I was doing a couple of classes a week. I also had a background in jazz and modern, and I was a trained high school teacher. And frankly, I think I was right on the edge. I wasn't quite ready for it. But I managed, and with the support of my fellow teachers, I got through. As a rule of thumb, I think as a minimum you need 5 years of good, solid study before you even consider it. And by solid study, I mean more than one teacher, more than one class a week, attending lots of workshops. If you're looking at the internet or using DVDs to learn belly dance, it's going to be a lot longer. If you're totally self-directed, longer still, if at all. So the first thing is you've got to be able to belly dance. That seems self-evident, but not everyone can see that. The next thing people often say is if you're going to be a belly dance teacher, you're going to have performance skills. I'd say you need some performance experience, but I don't think you need to have to be a great performer with a lot of experience, unless you're teaching performance. So once you start teaching intermediates or more advanced dancers who want to perform, then yes, you've got to have a good solid background there. But for beginners, not so much. And in actual fact, I've found often the best dancers, the greatest performers actually make the worst teachers because they're unable to actually see how they do their magic. Us less advanced performers struggle a bit more, and we tend to be able to teach a little bit better, I hope. Here comes the first myth. Well, I'm teaching beginners, so I don't need to know that much. I don't need to be a great dancer. I've already said you don't need to be a great performer, but that's totally untrue. Beginners are the hardest people to teach and the most important. What you learn as a beginner will be with you for ages. If your first teacher is uninspiring, you could give up. If your first teacher is unsafe, you could be injured and have to give up. If your first teacher is an idiot, she might teach you things which you then have to spend months unlearning. So beginners are not an easy option. Before you start teaching beginners, you've really got to know what you're doing. Which brings me on to the next thing. I've sort of mentioned this. You also have to be able to teach. Being able to dance, especially for beginners, is not enough. You have to be able to teach. You have to be able to take the skills required and get them across to all sorts of students, not just students who are like you. If you're a talented dancer, what about that person with 2 left feet? How are you going to teach them to dance? And different people learn differently. So you take a movement, you've got to be able to show it, obviously, so there's your skill. You also need to be able to describe it. You might have to be able to come up with some imagery. You might come up with some sound. So, for the 3/4 shimmy, it's chugga-chug, 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 chugga-chug. And for some people, it works. For other people, it's down, up, down, down, up, down. For other people, they need to follow you up and down the studio, following your butt, and that's how they learn. Other people might have an image that works. So you've got to be able to switch between these. The next thing you've got to be able to do as a teacher is to actually work out what you're going to teach. If you're going to teach a figure 8, for example, what does a student be able to do beforehand? They have to have posture. They have to be able to do a washing machine. They have to be able to do a slide. If they can't do those things, they're not going to get a figure 8. You also need to know what's safe and what's not. So a horizontal figure 8 isn't too bad, it's reasonably safe. A vertical figure 8, especially a maya, is really stressful on a beginner's back, especially if they're not terribly fit or they don't have very good abs. So you need to consider that. How are you going to build your course? For this, you may need to study a bit of anatomy, you may need to study some safe dance practice. You need a lesson plan. What are you going to teach in this lesson? How does that fit over the whole term? How does that fit over the whole year? What are you going to do if you turn up with your beautiful lesson plan and half the students can't follow it? What are you going to do if you have a mixed ability class? You've got people who can barely do a hip rock and you've got people who can actually do a walking shimmy and play zills at the same time. You need to be able to be flexible, and you need to be able to think on the spot, and you need to be able to change your lessons plan on the spot. So how do you learn these skills? Yes, there are natural teachers just like there are natural dancers, but most people don't fit into that category. If you're lucky and you've got a really good teacher you can work with, you can watch how he or she does it. However, on the whole, most of the teachers that I have observed teaching are not people I would give to a beginner teacher to watch. There are courses. If you're really lucky, you may be able to find a belly dance course that will teach you how to teach belly dance. They are very, very rare, however. Most of the belly dance courses are actually more certification. Now, what certification is that they make sure that you can actually dance the way that their franchise is set up. So it doesn't necessarily teach you how to teach. Also have a look at how long it takes to do the course. You are not going to learn to teach in a weekend. Sorry. I was really lucky to be able to do a dance teacher's course. I had to go in with the ballet dancers, but that's beside the point. The course took 2 years. Okay, it was part-time. But it was pretty full on. In that time, I had to be able to present to my tutors my lesson plans. I had to be able to actually analyse my movements and how I would safely teach them. I had to video my classes so they could actually see how I taught and give me feedback. And then I had to go to Australia and actually teach a class of ballet students some ballet dance. So it is a long, drawn-out process. There may be courses in your area which teach you how to teach adults. Here it's called ACE. And they tend to be like little weekend courses which build up. Although there are some that will actually build up over a couple of years and do a full lot. So there are resources out there. So you need to be able to dance. You need to be able to teach. But that isn't all of it. You've also got marketing. No good if you're the greatest teacher in the world if you haven't got any students. You also need to be able to find premises. You need to be able to handle contracts. If your literacy is on the blink, this is going to be really, really hard. You need a friend who can actually read through those contracts and make sure they're okay. You need to be able to keep your books. Because you're making money, you are liable to pay tax. Yes, you might have expenses. You have to prove it. These are my expenses, these is my income, and the difference is what you pay tax on. So you need to be able to do taxes or have an accountant who will do it for you. You need music licenses. You need insurance. So all these things are just as important. And it can eat away your life. If you've also got a day job to support it, you might end up feeling really tired sometimes, so you actually need some support. Your students can be your support, but don't lean on your students. Your students aren't there to be your friends. So make sure you have your own support services to help you. And do your best. The dance deserves it. Your students deserve it. Now go out and get a pen and paper and see what else you need to do before you can start to teach.